said that we think a balance that includes both additional revenue to the
Good evening, YouTube. Hold on one second so I can see everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Sorry, I just can't get my view right. I will get it figured out so I can actually watch the hearing too. I am Mrs. Dave the lawyer, aka Jacqueline Leah, and happy 4th of July week. Today is July 1st of the month, on 3 days before America's 250th birthday. So originally I was going to start streaming the Afro Man trial, but I really wanted to finish up that hearing that we started the other night about the future of Social Security. So let's start with that. I do have another pretty good hearing teed up too when this one ends, but we'll see what time that is. I'm starting a little bit later than I wanted to tonight. To be honest, I just lost track of time. I thought it was like 9 o'clock, but it's after 10 right now. But we started this hearing, we started listening to it, I believe, Sunday night. You know, basically talking about the future of Social Security. Will we run out of money in a few years? I don't think I'm going to see Social Security when I go to retire, but we'll see what these guys have in store for us. You know, typically the left's go-to is we need, to give them more money, but as we know, that typically does not solve any of the issues. But let's keep this momentum up and listen in on that hearing now.
program and benefit adjustments are necessary. And then finally, the program's benefit structure has not been updated in more than 40 years. And I think a solution that only looks at the revenue side, but doesn't focus on some of the changes in demographics and labor force dynamics that we've had would be a huge missed opportunity.
Okay. Ms. Melito, many of my colleagues appear to be under the impression that eliminating the tax cap would only fall on the back of so-called wealthy. Can you elaborate on how such proposals would impose punitive tax hikes on small business? And I know you referred to this in your opening statement. And secondly, how would such proposals affect the ability of small business to compete with large corporations?
Thank you, Senator Grassley, for that question. And I think punitive is a good characterization. Since the Social Security Expansion Act would impose 3 new massive taxes, and a lot of those would fall on small businesses. And saying that most households won't see a tax increase with the elimination of the tax cap doesn't change the fact that the taxes would be imposed on many pass-through small businesses. And the concern isn't about, in my opinion, about the number of households that are affected. It's whether taxing those businesses that invest and create jobs is the right way to strengthen Social Security. I think this mantra, let's raise taxes on small businesses so that we can pay more, is not a winning slogan on Main Street. The outlook on Main Street right now is very different than the outlook on Wall Street. There is not an infusion of capital on Main Street right now. Small business owners use that income, which is referred to in the proposal as investment income, as savings and a way to expand their business, to hire new employees, and they put it away for a rainy day. So it would very much impact their ability to also compete with larger businesses.
And for you as well, some of my colleagues attempt to limit the reach of a small business tax hike by eliminating the tax cap only for taxpayers with earnings over $250,000. However, this threshold is not indexed. So won't this result in ever more small businesses getting hit by the tax hike?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly would, Senator. So if the threshold, the $250,000 threshold, is not indexed for inflation, its real value is going to decline over time. So what starts as a tax on a relatively small number of employees and small business owners could become a tax on many, many more taxpayers, savers, and small businesses in the future.
This will have to be my last question, so Mr. Akos. Wage subject to Social Security tax have been capped since the program's enactment. in 1935, yet some of my colleagues argue it's fundamentally unfair. So for you, what is the purpose of the Social Security tax wage cap, and how would its elimination alter Social Security structure as an earned benefit based on contributions?
Thank you, Senator. The cap has been part of Social Security from the beginning because it connects what you pay in to what you receive out of the program. Social Security's 90-year political durability is in part resting on that principle, that it is an earned benefit and not a welfare program. And the more you contribute throughout your career, the more you receive in retirement. I think lifting the cap without changing the benefit formula would, of course, change that linkage. And that raises a fundamental question about what kind of program we want Social Security to be. Given where the program is, I think all options need to be on the table, but we should carefully consider any changes that truly break that linkage because it changes the fundamental nature of the program. I would say that we at BPC have supported increasing the taxable maximum as part of a broader package, but that would still retain the link between earnings and benefits.
Okay, Senator Sanders.
Thanks. Before I ask my questions, let me just state for the record that the legislation that we are talking about, the bill that I've introduced, the Social Security Expansion Act, would not raise taxes except on those making more than $250,000, which would exclude the vast majority of small business owners from paying a penny in additional taxes. In reality, the vast majority of the
Yeah, so I definitely think we listened to this part on Sunday, but that's okay. You know, just we can listen to Mr. Sanders go on this rant again, and I'll go on my rant again, because historically, when they make these comments about, okay, well, we're going to raise this tax, but it's not going to affect you if you make this much money. I feel like we've heard this statement many times from the left, and it never really works out the way that they say it's going to. Typically, we do get taxed, or if you're in that bracket, you do get taxed. And I think a lot of us have seen, really, I would say, like in the last 5 years, that the middle class in America has really gotten hurt the most with different changes in tax laws and whatnot, going from Trump to Biden, now back to Trump. And it almost feels like they're trying to eliminate the middle class. And I think one of the big reasons that we see this is the cost of living has gone up so significantly. But regardless of that, the problem is that when we tax a corporation, we tax or a high income individual, it typically always comes back to the middle class, because these corporations, if they're paying more taxes and they're getting less profits, they're going to find a way to fill that gap. And what happens is they raise their pricing, and that comes back onto the consumer. So ultimately the consumer, and typically it's the middle class in this situation, I'm just thinking about, you know, different like items that you use every day. That's who pays the price. They find a way to make up for their profits. These big corporations typically aren't happy with making less money, and they find a way to make that money back, whether it's just a lower quality product, or maybe they'll just eliminate more jobs in America and use, you know, offshore labor. So with the Dems, they're always asking for more money. Their solution is always more money, more taxes, and it always ends up affecting Americans in the worst way.
additional tax will be paid for by wealthy business owners and investors who, in the last many years, have been able to avoid billions in taxes. All right, let me begin by asking all of the panelists a very brief question, if I might. Do you agree with me and virtually every economist that we are seeing more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time in the history of the country? Mr. Akabas, is that true?
Absolutely.
Yes, Senator, and the amount of earnings that are above the taxable maximum are now
Ms. Melito, very briefly, is that true?
growing.
My members tell a different story based on our most recent
They do
economic
not
trends.
believe that we are seeing now more income and wealth inequality than any time in American
They are
history.
in a very uncomfortable period right now. Thank you.
That may be the case, but it doesn't deny the reality that we have more income and wealth inequality. Ms. Altman?
Unquestionably, the data
All right,
absolutely
let me
shows
ask
that.
my next question. The CEO of Warner Brothers, just as an example, just one, his name is David Zaslav, made $165 million in compensation. CEO of Blackstone made $126 million in compensation. We're seeing some of these guys are making huge amounts in compensation. Question to Mr. Akabas, and I'll go down to the whole panel. Do you think it is fair that somebody who makes $126 million in compensation pays the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund as somebody who makes $184,000? Is that fair?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think it's important to consider that Social Security is structured as an earned benefit program. And so while I certainly...
I know we can go on for hours. I'm just asking you, you're the average person here. Is it fair?
I agree we need to be collecting more revenue from higher income taxpayers as part of the solution to Social Security's.
Ms. Melito, do you think it's fair?
Why is that the solution, though? I don't understand why that is the solution. Because, first of all, it demotivates people to work harder when they know, okay, you know, if I make this threshold of money, I'm going to pay, you know, anywhere from 37% or 50%, or I think some states we're talking about like a 70+% tax or something like that. That's very demotivating for individuals. And also, what's very misleading that a lot of Americans don't understand is how high income or very wealthy business owners operate when it comes to taxes and tax laws. Many of them don't pay anything in taxes or very little, because what they do is they use the tax laws to their advantage. And if you understand what the tax laws really are, it's basically a guide of what you can do to pay as little taxes as possible. But you have to do all the things exactly how it's written. So it's very specific. And, you know, wealthy individuals, they work with CPAs and tax attorneys, and you know, they're planning stuff in advance, and they set up things in advance like trusts and sometimes offshore accounts, LLCs, various business structures. So they don't have to pay taxes, or they pay as little taxes as possible. And somebody like Elon Musk, you know, there's some years where he doesn't have an income. So he brings home nothing. And what he'll do is he'll use his stock value to leverage a loan from a bank and use that loan to pay for his living expenses and trips and things like that. And if he does it that way, then he doesn't have to pay taxes, because you don't have to pay taxes on money that's loaned to you. So a lot of very wealthy individuals do things like that. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot of ways that you can avoid paying taxes legally, and it is legal. You just have to know exactly what to do. But this is what they do. I mean, the tax laws were made for them. So this notion that we're just gonna, you know, tax the very rich and, you know, very wealthy business owners are evil and they need to be taxed more. I mean, that's just like word salad that Sanders likes to say, because it's not going to happen. That's not reality. It's a fantasy in his head that just doesn't happen, because people like Elon Musk, they don't pay taxes the same way a middle-class, blue-collar working American does. It's just a fact.
Social Security was set up as a contributory comp act, so as it is now, that's
And also, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they don't care about Social Security. They're not collecting Social Security, or like if they are, like they don't care. Like that doesn't mean anything to them. When wealthy people don't rely on Social Security benefits for when they retire.
that is the system we are working under.
Well, that
And I
is
think
the system.
it was also President Clinton, too, that also cautioned against
What
raising
President
taxes.
Clinton said is fine. That's not my view. I simply asked you whether it is fair. But the ordinary person thinks it's fair that somebody's making $100 million, pays the same amount into the trust fund as somebody's making $184,000. Do you think it's fair?
The way Social Security is established
Okay.
now, yep.
Okay. Ms. Altman?
No, I don't. And in fact, it's even worse. Jeff Bezos, one of the wealthiest men in the world, only pays himself $80,000, so he pays less than someone making $184,500.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I just said. So Jeff Bezos, he understands how the tax laws work, and he pays taxes on the salary that he pays himself, which is $80,000. $80,000, okay? This is Jeff Bezos that bought his second wife, they're married now, you know, this huge, egregious yacht and named it after her. I mean, he literally, like, paid for her to be in Vogue and sponsor the Met Gala, okay? Like, one of the richest people on this earth. And legally, on paper, on his tax returns, he only shows and pays taxes on $80,000, guys, okay? Like, this is a person that is, like, sipping champagne and eating caviar on his super yacht every weekend in South Florida. So I just want you guys to just think about that, imagine that, and understand why the proposal that Bernie Sanders has will not work and will not solve anything at all.
Dollars.
Okay. Ms. Altman, some of my Republican colleagues in one form or another have talked about raising the retirement age, privatizing Social Security, cutting COLAs, and reducing Social Security benefits. What impact would that have on millions of seniors?
As you said in your opening statement, seniors are already, and people with disabilities are struggling to get by. They're deciding between food and medicine, and all of those changes that you named would make that struggle much harder, and it would hurt the economy. For every dollar of Social Security benefits that are paid, it generates $2 of economic activity, and the reverse is true if you cut those benefits.
Ms. Altman, I want you to say a word about a fact that I don't think is widely known, but it really is an American tragedy, and that is due to a lack of funding for the Social Security Administration, some 30,000 Americans with disabilities die every year waiting for the Social Security benefits they have earned. What should Congress do about this? Is the Trump administration considering making this problem even worse?
Unfortunately, the Trump administration has already made it worse. It's forced out the most experienced workers and really decimated the agency. I think what Congress should do is immediately enact the Keep Billionaires Out of Social Security Act, which provides the money that pays for Social Security and the administration of it don't add a penny to the deficit. They all come out of dedicated revenue.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you know, there is always a reason given why we should not ask the wealthiest people in this country who have enormous political power through their super PACs, et cetera, always a reason why they should not be asked to pay their fair share of taxes. But today, As I mentioned earlier, we are living in a rather strange moment in American history. Never before in American history have so few held so much wealth and so much power. And meanwhile, while the people on top have never, ever had it so good, we are seeing senior citizens in Vermont and throughout this country literally struggling to pay for their prescription drugs, to put food on the table, heat their homes. In the richest country on earth, we can do better than that. And I think basically, bottom line here is this Congress is going to have to summon up the courage to stand up to some enormously powerful people and their super PACs and expand Social Security benefits, extend the solvency of Social Security, and do that by lifting the cap that currently exists. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question of Senator Sanders real quickly? Senator Sanders, I don't know, is in your, I gather there's a donut hole, is this bottom figure indexed to inflation?
The donut hole is right now, we are at 250, you're at 184. And is it indexed to inflation? No, it's not.
Not, okay, thank you.
Senator Johnson.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, well, we'll never fix this if we're not willing to take a look at the reality of what Social Security is. Again, it was a forced savings program. What you paid in was supposed to be invested, and then the beauty of compound interest, you'd be able to collect retirement based on what you paid in, correct? Mr. Akabas?
Excuse me, sorry, Senator, yes.
And again, Americans thought that that money was being invested, but the money was spent, it's gone, right? And in its place was a U.S. government bond put in.
Yeah, so this is my problem with Social Security. It's not being utilized the way it's supposed to be utilized. It's a Ponzi scheme now. It was supposed to be money put aside that's accruing interest, so you're paying into it your entire life working, and then as a reward for that, when you go to retire, the government has invested your money and it's accrued interest, and now you're getting, you know, a monthly stipend to retire, so you don't have to work your entire life. But our government didn't follow that system. They didn't take that money, set it aside, let it grow. I mean, they could have done a lot with our tax dollars. They could have, you know, I mean, the government knows how to trade. We know that people in Congress are some of the best stock traders in the world. So we know that they know how to trade. But they're not using our money that's supposed to accrue interest and be used for our retirement for that. They take the money and they're using it for other things. And now we're in a situation where we have to continue paying. So the people that paid in all those years, when they go to retire, or, you know, if they become disabled, we have to use fresh money to fund Social Security. But that was never, it's not how it was supposed to be set up. And that's what makes me so upset about it, because it's a complete scam. And the solution that the Democrats have for us is that we just need to keep giving them more money. And the people that work the hardest, innovate ideas, you know, take a leap, start a business, you know, small business owners or medium or even big business owners in America, which is like the heart and the backbone of America, should have to pay the price and basically be penalized for being successful because our government has mismanaged our money. And that's what I don't really like about the program. Let me know your thoughts.
Into the trust fund. So how much value does a U.S. government bond have to a U.S. government agency? The answer is zero, right? Because when the trustees take that bond to pay out benefits because benefits exceed revenue right now, the U.S. Treasury just has to issue another bond, right?
Correct.
So again, the trust fund is a fiction. And already we are either borrowing or taking out the general fund to make up the difference between benefits and receipts, correct?
On an annual basis, yes.
So again, what's unfair about the lifting the cap is it violates the basis, you know, the basic foundation of Social Security, which is a, you know, you pay in and you get out what you pay in. But you know, so if you want to turn it to total welfare system, that's a different conversation. Already, it's quite the welfare system. I'll submit for the record, Table 1, the money's worth ratios for hypothetical workers with various earnings levels. And I'll just talk about the middle three.
You know, the other thing that somebody brought up in the chat, which I think is important to point out, is people are coming here into America, and we know for a fact that this happened a lot when Biden was in office. People come to our country illegally, and we're giving them Social Security money. They've never lived in America. They've never worked in America. They've never paid taxes in America. But between 2021 and 2024, they could enter our country illegally. And the Biden regime was giving them Social Security money, putting them at, you know, luxury hotels in New York City, giving them food cards, and giving them income. And we know that that is true. This is something that happened not everywhere in the U.S., but it certainly happened in sanctuary cities, and we know it was happening in New York City. I'm sure it was happening in California. It probably still is happening in California. So think of how messed up that is, okay? You, as an American citizen, you've lived here your whole life. You work hard. Some of us have worked since we were teenagers. I started working at 13, and there's a lot of kids that will work at age 14. We have a popular grocery store here in Florida, and a lot of 14-year-olds can start working there and make an income. So you're working as a teenager, and you're forced to pay for Social Security. They pull that out of every single paycheck. And, you know, at first it doesn't seem like it's that much money, maybe a couple dollars, you know, depending on how much you make hourly. But if you think about that money and you think about how much it actually is in the scheme of things from all those years that you're working, and that money just gets given to somebody that comes here illegally into the United States, doesn't that make you kind of angry? And now they're telling us, well, we don't know if we're going to have enough money when you retire, but you still have to pay it. You're still paying it. You're forced to pay it. And our Congress and Senate want to impose this problem onto us, onto the American legal citizens that had no say in, you know, what they were spending that money on. And their solution is for us to pay more. And any way you cut it, we're paying more. I don't care what Sanders says. Oh, well, if you make under $250, you're not paying more. Because that's not true, because you will pay more. Even if you're not paying it directly on your tax bill when you go to file your taxes in April, you'll be paying for it because your coffee is going to be 50 cents more. Your groceries are going to be $400 more a month, because of all the little increases that all the big corporations had to do because they got taxed more, and now they're putting that tax back onto you. And it's like, how much more money can they take from us? When will they be satisfied that they've taken enough? Because it never solves any problems with our government. We need to pay them less. Let's see what happens when we keep our money. We take that money that's going to Social Security and put it in an investment that grows and let it grow. If we did that, I can guarantee you, you're going to have a lot more money when you go to retire than what Social Security could ever pay you.
Low income, medium income, and high income. The people who benefit best are one earner couples. They get the most out of Social Security. So if you're a low income, again, this is a very detailed table, but the people who make out the best is somebody born in 1973, single income couple. They get $3.33 out for every buck they put in, okay? If you're a single man, high wage earner, born in 1943, you're gonna get 63 cents out. So again, it's all over the map. but it's very imprecise in terms of, what you put in versus what you get out. And now what the Democrats want to do is they just want to alleviate that, do great harm to our economy, because again, small businesses that gets taxed at the individual level. Mr. Bezos is a C Corp, and I'd love to talk to you about taxing all business income at the ownership level, turn everybody into pass-throughs, then you wouldn't have that problem. But again, you've got to recognize how grossly mismanaged Social Security was. I did a chart, this is a spreadsheet years ago. Had we taken those surpluses, actually invested them into, let's say, a stock index fund, which I know we didn't have back then, but something equivalent. Back then, we would have something like $8 trillion. With the run-up in the stock market, it's probably about $15 trillion of hard assets. We'd be talking about increasing benefits, but we didn't do that. So now the solution for fixing Social Security is lift the cap and just tax the wealthy, who are, by the way, based on the deal that Social Security was supposed to be. $1 put in, you're going to get that plus compound interest. They're not getting it. They're getting 63 cents, as low as 63 cents. So, Mr. Akabas, just comment on one of the points I made there.
Well, Senator, I certainly agree that we have reached a point where the significant majority of beneficiaries are receiving far more than they contributed into the program over their lifetime. And that's
pretty much the case right now.
Yes, that is the case, and that's in part why we are at a point where the program is mismatched between the revenues that are paid in and the benefits that are being taken out. And so we need to find ways on both sides of the ledger to make those lines grow closer together.
So again, my point is, let's honestly look at what Social Security was, how it was set up, how grossly mismanaged it was, how economically destructive it will be to increase. 12% increase in taxes on a small business person, and you may say it's wealthy, but you're making 250 grand as a small business, you make $500,000, you're putting that additional $250,000 into plant and equipment to grow the business, to create jobs. Again, unfortunately, a lot of our Democrat colleagues don't understand how the private sector works and what wealthy people do with their money. They invest it to the benefit of our economy. So again, it starts with recognizing reality, how grossly mismanaged Social Security was. Then let's start looking for real solutions. And by the way, it's not going to be a calamity. It shouldn't be. Already we are making up benefits because benefits exceed revenue. Just because the trust fund runs out doesn't mean that we won't be able to or shouldn't plus up benefits to meet the promise, right? It's just the fiction of the trust fund runs out.
Why do we allow our government to operate this way? Like, if our government was a private corporation, it would be bankrupted. Long ago bankrupt, just over and over and over again. They're so bad at running things, especially when it has to do with money and finance. They're just so bad at it. It is kind of mind-blowing, and I always question, are they just incompetent, or is this done on purpose? Is this willful negligence, or they turn a blind eye, or they just make it so bad and complicated that there's just no fixing it, so they just have to ask for more money? I just don't understand. It makes no sense. Let me know in the comments.
And now all of a sudden, by law, you're supposed to have to reduce benefits, but we won't. What we need to do is reduce the deficit, return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending so we have the wherewithal to plus up benefits. That's the first thing we ought to do. Reduce the deficit by reducing spending. Thank you.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Federation of Government Employees asked that we put their statement into the record. I'd ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's good to have our guests here. And I want to start with the basic proposition of fairness in Social Security. Now, it is well established that billionaires and trillionaires get to decide when and if they pay federal taxes. But for somebody who works for a wage, I'm talking about a nurse, I'm talking about an electrician, they pay automatically every year. I hope my colleagues will say, and a number of us are on the Finance Committee, that we ought to have the same rules for everybody. Now, wealthy people who are interested in doing it can call up their lawyer and their accountant, and they can say, make sure I don't take a wage this year. I'll be able to live off my loans, these incredible loans I get from their favorable treatment from banks. Question one, Ms. Altman, is it fair that billionaires and trillionaires can avoid paying tax on their income when the working person gets their tax taken out of every paycheck?
No, it is not fair. I mean, the concept of the wealth.
Whoa, wait, let's wait a second, though, because I don't like when statements are made and they act like we don't have a choice, because we do have a choice. And I think it was on tax day, either April 15th or the day after, Scott Bessent told everybody on camera to, when you do your your filing as an employee, take it down so you're paying as little as possible into taxes. Like, that was the advice from our Secretary of Treasury, or whatever his title is. So you don't have to automatically have that money, all of the money, deducted if you're a W-2. You can decide when you fill out the forms how much money you want to be deducted from your paycheck. So you can have the minimum possible deducted, and then some people, I think a lot of people nowadays, have multiple jobs or side businesses. So if you have like a LLC or a side business or something like that, or you're getting money on commission or tips or anything that's not a W-2, then you can fill out form, I think it's 1040, and you can deduct the expenses that you have for that business also. And what may happen is you may not owe taxes at the end of the year. Sometimes, you may get a refund. So the point is, you have a choice. So it's not like yes, you need to pay taxes and you need to file taxes 100%, but everybody needs to try to understand the tax system, the tax laws for themselves. And there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, we're in 2026, the age of information. Like, if you want to learn it, you can. Or you can hire somebody professional to help you with it. But I think it's a good idea for everybody to plan your years in advance. If you can find a tax preparer that you like and you trust, and for instance, like what you normally bring in, or you have goals or whatnot, you can plan in advance so you can reduce your tax bill as much as possible. And that's what all of these very wealthy people are doing. But it's not, the tax law isn't just for very wealthy people. Anybody in the U.S. can follow the tax laws. You just have to follow them exactly how they're written.
Who arguably benefit the most from the government, from courts and military, and because they have the most property, should pay more, is a basic American value. And you're keeping Billionaires Act exactly the right way to go.
Well, 24 United States senators are saying, yes, we ought to have a system that's fair for everybody. And it seems to me Americans can do better than creating trillionaires while millions of Americans worry about getting Social Security slashed. Now, here's the question that I wanted to ask based on this op-ed that came from my two colleagues, Senator Marino and Senator Warren. Now, if you increase the Social Security tax cap, and then you take my billionaire's income tax, question for you, Ms. Altman, would it be possible to start restoring some fairness in the tax code while preventing benefit cuts or forcing seniors to put off retirement?
Absolutely. There are going to be important byproducts if you bring in more revenue, increase Social Security's benefits, because one of the byproducts would be meaningful tax reform, because you'd have a counterweight of the American people would either suffer benefit cuts, it's not just good government, or billionaires start paying their fair share.
So let me ask our colleague at the other end of the table, do you disagree with the responses that Ms. Altman gave to me?
Well, thank you, Senator, for the question. My perspective is that we certainly need higher income Americans to be contributing to the solution on
But on the question of equal treatment, the ultimate proposition here, and that was what was done at the start of Social Security, was fairness. The American people, it's like in our DNA. Wouldn't it be fair to have the same system for everybody?
Well, Senator, I think there are important questions around that, like would we pay out the same benefits for everybody?
I'm not asking that today. We're going to have that in the Finance Committee and all over the country. But on the basic proposition of fairness, when that nurse and electrician pays taxes with every single paycheck, and people who are up at the very top can call up their accountant and lawyer and say, make sure I don't take any income this year, I think something's out of whack here.
Okay, but the thing is those people are just following the tax law. And everybody can read the tax law. Everybody can follow those same guidelines that wealthy people follow. It's not just for wealthy people. Every American can follow the tax laws. You have a choice. What I think is propaganda is when public figures try to basically tell you that you're too stupid to follow tax laws, only wealthy people can follow these codes. And that's just not true. And that keeps people in poverty thinking that, oh, well, that's not for me. Or even the notion like, oh, these rich people are so bad, they're evading taxes. But they really aren't. They're really following the tax law that was created by these people that are sitting there telling you that they're doing something wrong. If they really thought that they were doing something wrong, that they would change the tax laws. They have the ability to do that. There's people sitting here trying to blame hardworking Americans and telling you that it's not fair and you need to pay more taxes and that's the only way to resolve this. They're just full of crap because they're the ones that have the power to change this and make it quote unquote fair. But let's just be real, guys. Like, things are not fair. Things are not fair in this country. Things are not fair in other countries. Life is not fair. It just isn't. It is what it is. It's just not fair. It isn't. And the definition of justice in America, as you get older, you realize it's very different than you thought it was when you were growing up and being taught it in school. It's just very, very different when you become an adult and you figure that out for yourselves. But the bottom line is, please don't listen to these people because they have the ability to change things and actually make it fair, but that's not the solution. Their only solution is pay us more money. And don't believe them when they're telling you, well, we're just going to go after the rich and, we're only going to tax them and it's not going to affect you. That is such a lie. First of all, why would they even say that? Because the rich people are the ones funding their campaigns, right? They're in office because of those evil rich people. They literally have super PACs and pay them millions of dollars. That's why they're sitting there. So you just have to think about, well, this doesn't make sense. Why would they say that? What's in it for them? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one paying. If you start paying more taxes, if anybody has to pay more taxes, it all trickles down. We all have to pay more. And the rich will find a way and a loophole and a law, and they'll act like, you're too stupid to figure it out. But you can figure that out too. You can follow the same rules and laws that they follow.
Just want to make sure that we say, whether you're blue or red or however you come to this issue, that that's something we settle on. No?
I agree, Senator, that we need to make sure that the high-income taxpayers are contributing on whatever form of income that they have. I think it's a somewhat more complex question in terms of the revenue coming in and the benefits that are being paid out.
We'll have to talk about
how fairness
the
is considered.
There's no question about it. But if we have a system that's fair for everybody, I think we can avoid cutting Social Security, and that's what my colleagues are talking about on our side of the aisle. And one last question, if I can get it in. And perhaps Ms. Molina will get you into this debate. We've seen a disturbing trend of Social Security being haphazard with Americans' sensitive information and even weaponizing it that would, in reality, take away people's earned benefits. Just a few weeks ago, we heard from a brave former Social Security.
I mean, what I don't understand is if Congress and the Senate care so much about our seniors. I've listened to so many hearings in the last couple of weeks, specifically talking about our poor seniors and how we have to take care of them. And if they're so concerned about that, why do our seniors pay taxes on their Social Security? Can anybody answer that for me? They've already been taxed and paid into Social Security. And when they get their Social Security check monthly, they get taxed on that. So that would be like an easy thing to do. Let's stop taxing them. They already pay taxes on that money. If they, are so poor and we can't cut anymore, I mean, that's the first thing we could do, right? Like, let's, give them back that couple $100s a month. That makes a big difference for people. A really big difference. The other thing that they could do too that would help seniors is they could stop imposing lifelong penalties on them for not signing up at the exact right time that they needed to. Did you guys know that if you don't sign up for Medicare by a certain age and a certain window of time, let's say you just didn't know because, let's be honest, the government does a really bad job explaining and educating seniors about their benefits and whatnot. So you didn't know that you had to sign up for Medicare Part B at a certain time. And, let's say you're 68 now and you go to sign up for Medicare. Well, did you know that they impose a fine on you when you sign up for every month that you didn't have Part B? And that fine never goes away. You pay for that now for the rest of your life. And I've seen this, several people where it's a couple $100s a month. And it's not, I guess it is their fault. I guess they should have known that they should have signed up, but maybe these people lived somewhere rural and didn't get the information that they needed to sign up properly. Or also, if you're 65, you're obligated to sign up for Medicare Part D or have a comparable plan within 60 days of turning 65. And if you don't get it then, and then you go to sign up for it later in life, you pay a penalty for every single month you didn't have it after you turn 65 for the rest of your life. That penalty never goes away. And, typically you're signing up for it later in life because now you have an illness and you need to get prescription drugs. So you really need the plan now, and you really need that money to pay for your drugs because you probably have a really bad illness, and that's why you didn't sign up before, and now you're signing up. But our lovely government that cares so much about seniors, they're going to impose a lifelong penalty for the rest of your life for not signing up within that 60-day window. And most seniors have no idea that this is a thing. So I just don't understand why anybody would believe these guys when they say that they just care so much for American citizens. They care so much about our seniors, where they can do very simple things that don't really cost them anything, but it would make a huge impact in a senior's life. Like I said, a couple $100s a month is a big deal for some people. That's, an extra couple grocery runs. That's, paying an electricity bill, gas for 3 months. It's a lot of money to some people. $200 would make a big difference. And these are little things that Congress could, fit into one of their little omnibus, 5,000-page bills or whatever, just stick it in there, and it would tremendously help our senior population. But I don't think anybody is planning to do that.
Official who detailed how the Trump administration sought to falsely declare nearly 3 million people, many of whom are U.S. citizens, as deceased. What's your position on this question of further protection with privacy statutes, tough privacy rules to protect your members and others?
Well, we certainly want to make sure that the Social Security system is secure and that private information is protected. I mean, my members ask that of all federal agencies because they know the federal government has a lot of their personal information, a lot of their employees' personal information.
I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead.
So I just got to tell you guys this. So I have an insurance agency. I've been in the insurance industry since 2015. But anyways, I do help people with Medicare. And a couple of years ago, I went to call, 1-800-Medicare with one of my clients. We had some questions. And I was kind of shook because when we called in, we were not talking to somebody in America. So Medicare, at that time, I don't know if they still do it today, but a couple of years ago, they were using offshore call centers for Medicare. So those offshore call centers, they had seniors' data, Medicare numbers, Social Security numbers. And again, because they bring this up a lot about, offshore countries hurting our seniors, hurting our citizens, taking our information. But then our government utilizes these offshore facilities and offshore people and gives them all of our private data. So that would be an easy fix, right? But I don't know. It just does not make any sense to me, guys.
Head on that issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, let's see, the next person is Senator Cassidy.
I'll defer to Senator Tillis.
Okay, Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Senator Cassidy, and Senator Grassley. Thank you for letting me sit on this committee. I'm not an official member. Back when I was 12 years old, back in 1973, I had to apply for a work permit so that I could work for a convenience store. And in 1973, I posted my first contribution to Social Security as a 13-year-old, 12-year-old actually, $33. And I've been blessed. I don't know if I call myself rich, but Ms. Altman, let's talk about what rich means. We picked Bezos, we picked some of the other ones. What's rich to you? What's the threshold for rich that we should be applying all of this rich people stuff to? What's that threshold? Because ultimately, as a matter of legislation, we got to come up with one. So what's rich in your mind?
Well, certainly the top 1%, there's been
Now, give me an income level. Give me an income level.
Well, often for tax purposes, it's $250,000. There's proposals that are $400,000.
Does that sweep in the small businesses, the rich people that are members of NFIB? I'm just trying to get a beat on it.
You may be able to exempt small business owners.
Let me just tell you, just an observation. I don't want to be antagonistic towards you all. Mr. Akabas, in your opening statement, you talked about the reality of people running for re-election. Quite honestly, when I was weighing whether or not I run for re-election, the reality that I would be running hard to then inherit an insolvency issue with Social Security was a real consideration for me. I have no doubt that in the next 6 years, Congress is going to have to face up. My concern is I don't see any change in rhetoric whatsoever. If you go back to 2010 and the Simpson-Bowles Commission, we had an opportunity to fix it then. The debt was at about $12 trillion. The Simpson-Bowles subtitle, the report was Moment of Truth. Now the debt's at $36 trillion. I heard somebody say, well, we won't cut benefits, we'll just stroke a check. Mr. Akabas, what happens if we continue our debt trajectory right now? Do you necessarily think that we have a check that we can stroke without causing other debt problems? I mean, how do we avoid the mandatory cuts? And what is our bank account and our check writing ability likely to look at in 2032, in 2032?
Thank you, Senator. That is a huge concern. The growing debt burden that we have as a country, where debt is already equal to approximately 100% of GDP, is already slowing economic growth.
So are there
raising
other
interest
economists
rates.
saying that our debt to GDP at the same time that we're dealing with the insolvency issue with Social Security, all those things may come to roost at the same time?
Yes, we need to be considering that comprehensively.
So, Ms. Altman, why is it? I did a town hall years ago in Asheville when I was first running for Senate. Lady came up to me and she said, sir, she called me Speaker. I was Speaker of the House. I can't vote for you because you're going to end Social Security and Medicare. And I said, well, ma'am, I checked with my mama, and she said she'd be really mad at me if I did that. And yet people are messaging that Republicans are here to kill Social Security. Does anybody really believe that that would be fiscally or politically wise? But if we continue that rhetoric, what's going to happen here is we're going to talk past each other. And instead of considering extraordinarily well thought out proposals by people like Senator Cassidy that has Democrats engaged, we come out here and we're just sparring at either end of the political spectrum. We're not showing any hope of here. What is wrong with me telling a 25-year-old, you may have to wait a year longer for you to get your Social Security benefits as a part of fixing them? What's wrong with me telling somebody that's 40 years away from qualifying for Social Security that you may have to wait another year? The bad news is you got to wait another year. The good news is if we implement the reforms, you'll actually be able to get that check. What's wrong with that?
That 25-year-old and 40-year-old are going to need Social Security more than today's seniors.
My question is, because if they have 40 years to prepare, if you see the changes, why is a year longer that problem? Why is it so sacrosanct?
Because what Social
life expectancy and earning potential.
Because what Social Security is insurance, it's not savings.
So it is your view you can't touch age limits.
No.
You can't do any indexing. It must stay firm, or the organization you represent would come across any compromise. Is that your view?
We're happy to talk about revenue increases.
But you would oppose anything that has to do with indexing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So somebody in the chat asked, how do I know that when I called Medicare or CMS that I was talking to somebody offshore? Well, first of all, you can tell. That's number one. But number two, this is actually a thing. I'm not making this up. There was a Senate hearing also, if you're interested in hearing more about it, in March of 2025. It was titled, and we can stream it, I'll stream it next week, Pushing Medicare Advantage on Seniors, Unraveling the Complex Network of Marketing Middlemen, U.S. Senate Finance Committee, March 2025. So this is a known thing. And like I said, I've worked in the insurance industry since 2015. So this is like a known industry thing that offshore call centers are being utilized. And they're not just being utilized by insurance agencies or lead generation companies, but our very own government allows them and utilizes them as well. And the thing is that, just like the pharmaceutical drugs, we give them guidelines and we expect them to adhere to them. But at the end of the day, if somebody's offshore, we don't know what they're doing. If we don't have anybody physically there overseeing them, it's very hard to know what they're doing 100% of the time. So one of the areas that Medicare utilizes offshore call centers is for customer service. They're supposed to be open 24/7, so they utilize like Jamaica, Philippines, Pakistan, India, countries like that. I think Costa Rica is another one. Can go on, but they're utilizing offshore call centers and they're giving them all of the data. Like they have a computer in front of them, so when you call in, you have to give them your Social Security number, your Medicare number, your date of birth, your address, your phone number, your email. You're giving them all of this information, hoping that it's secure. But is it, guys? Is it really that secure once you're talking to somebody in an offshore country? And I don't really think that our government has systems in place that protect our information.
Cortez Masto, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Obviously, important one, and we're going to have to. We definitely, as Congress, working, with the private sector, we're going to have to do something here, and it has to be in a bipartisan way. So I appreciate the conversation. Let me ask a couple questions that haven't been asked here, because I read through the trustees' report. There are some policy decisions that actually have been made that have harmed the Social Security program. And I think if we can just undo some of that, maybe, then we can still work forward and make sure that we are not, at least between now and trying to address this problem, passing policy decisions or making policy decisions that are going to continue to harm. So let me talk about a couple of things that I know in Nevada that are challenging. And Ms. Altman, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this or respond. Many Nevadans I have experienced and talked to are dealing with SSA, the Social Security Administration, has significantly worsened because of the Trump administration's policy changes and staff cuts. Staff cuts. For example, in Clark County, Nevada, where Las Vegas is, there's a backlog of more than 500 foster youth who are currently unable to obtain their Social Security cards due to new burdensome documentation requirements recently imposed by the SSA, and recent staffing shortages are also making it more difficult to find a solution for these children. Let me ask you this. In your view, Ms. Altman, what will be the long-term consequences of such steep staffing cuts for the future of the Social Security Administration's efficiency in customer services? And why is it adequate to have the appropriate staffing that we need? Can you talk a little bit about that impact as we are dealing with Social Security right now?
Absolutely. And certainly anecdotally, well, not even anecdotally, it's taking months to get an appointment at a Social Security office, long waits on the phone, and so forth. The staffing is at a 50-year, I think it's a 59-year low, at a time when 12,000 Americans are turning 65 every single day. So I think, I think absolutely this is, if people cannot have their questions answered, access their benefits, that's like cutting their Social Security. So it's a very serious problem.
So let me ask you, Mr. Akabas, is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's a Cavus, but
Oh, thank you.
no worries.
So the trustees recently came out with a report. We've all been talking about that. And is it true that in that report, the biggest drivers to the increase in the deficit that we are talking about right now, in order of magnitude, are one, lower fertility rate projections, two, lower net immigration projections because of the current administration's deportation policy, and then three, the Republican reconciliation bill, they call it the one big beautiful bill, it's H.R. 1. Is that correct?
Yes, Senator, those are the three of the changes in the trustees' projections that have occurred since the last report.
And can you talk a little bit about why the immigration issue is having an impact, what we're dealing with immigration now, and why it's having an impact on this issue with respect to the funding of Social Security?
Sure. The trustees have changed their projections around the number of undocumented immigrants in the United States. Most of those all of those undocumented immigrants cannot receive benefits from Social Security, but many of them pay into the program. And so reducing the number that are assumed to be in the United States in the coming years will mean less revenue into the program, and that worsens the financial state of Social Security.
So if we were to pass wholesale immigration reform and have a really thoughtful process about immigration reform, would that actually add revenue to the Social Security Trust Fund?
Yes, immigration reform would bring more workers into the country on net, and that would contribute more to the revenue base of the Social Security program.
Thank you. And then one final question. Let me talk about data breaches. Ms. Altman, I'm going to go back to you. We know that because of a whistleblower report earlier this year alleging that a former DOJ employee detailed at the Social Security Administration who had access to two tightly restricted databases of Americans' personal information copied at least one of those databases onto a personal thumb drive.
So, like, again, when they make statements like that, it just makes me laugh because they really don't actually care. They don't care about our safety, our security, because they literally give our information to people in foreign countries to save a few dollars an hour. That's just a fact. I'm not making this up. You can look this up yourself, guys. But a lot of this is just political theater, and it's really kind of crazy. And the fake, like, shock from the left is, like, they're not even good at it anymore. Like, they used to be really good at getting us emotional and, like, outraged, and it's like they're not even trying anymore. Like, it's really stupid. What is she even saying? Like, oh, they copied your database or whatever. First of all, how does she even know? And what does that matter? All of our information is everywhere. If you have a phone, you're on YouTube right now, like our information is everywhere. It's an illusion that we have any type of freedom or cybersecurity or whatever. All of our information is floating around. Let's just call a spade a spade.
And according to this whistleblower allegation, the Doge employee planned to upload this data into the systems of his soon-to-be employer, a private government contractor, for its own use. So, Ms. Altman, can you please share with the committee why this data is such a prime target for bad actors?
This is people's most personal data, and it's also enormously useful for a scammer. It has, if you've applied for disability benefits, it has your medical records. If you've got your Social Security number, your bank routing number, your spouse's name, if you've been divorced, it has so much information, and it's been entrusted to the government with the understanding that it would be used for the specific mission of making sure people get their Social Security benefits. So this really calls, I think, for oversight and for enactment of some legislation that's been proposed, the Protecting Seniors Data Act and the Keeping Billionaires Out of Social Security Act. It's very, very serious.
Thank you. And then finally, I know my time is up. I'm just going to put a plug in here. I was pleased to join my colleague, Senator Cassidy, on the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. I thank you so much. I think it's good policy. It's good legislation. Thank you for the panelists.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Grassley. And Chairman Grassley was here when we last fixed social. So thank you for your leadership. You're going to bookend how we fix social. I say bookend because there's a bipartisan group of senators working to fix social this Congress. Why is that important? Because if we don't, whereas now it's a 22% cut in benefits if we don't fix it, or else a much greater rise in taxes. If we wait till the last minute, it'll be a 28% cut in benefits, or it'll be that much more in taxes. So the reality is the sooner we act, the better, and it's incumbent upon us, and no time like the present. I'll just briefly mention also something that Senator Kaine and I have. We call it the big idea, which would be to set up an investment fund separate from the Social Security Trust Fund, basically a pension investment fund used by unions and used by large corporations that would meet future pension obligations. Put $1.5 trillion in it over 5 years and invest it in the broader economy. If you do the numbers, clearly the economy can handle this. And as you do, all growth comes back into the fund. We would pay scheduled benefits, so you'd offset the borrowing. And by the rule of 72, at some point, the money just blossoms out. When both President Trump and Senator Sanders spoke about a portion of these big companies being used for the benefit of the American people, this is, in a sense, that concept that we use the growth in the economy in these sorts of assets to benefit the American people. And this would be a way to, among other things, increase benefits for some, to give credit for people taking time off to raise a child, because the amount it would throw off would do that. You still need to do some more things. There's political things that we have to do. But just to say that maybe there is bipartisan right now, so I'll just comment on that. Next, I also want to speak that, just to elaborate a little bit upon that, which, and then I'll ask you, Ms. Altman, to comment on. With Senator Cortez Masto, we have the Social Security Disability, or the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. Right now, if you're on SSI and you save a little bit of money, you lose your benefit. It's a totally wrong incentive. You're incentivized to waste money. As opposed, and whenever they established 2,000 as a limit, they did not index it to inflation. We would raise that to 10,000, which is about where it would be if indexed to inflation. And if you will, encourage wise fiscal management by somebody who's on SSI. Ms. Altman, I'll ask you to comment first on the importance of this policy, then you, sir, because I see you nodding your head yes, and if you're nodding your head yes, you like my bill. So, Ms. Altman.
It is so important. Anyone who is pro-savings and pro-family should support the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. It hasn't been increased for almost 40 years. And not only does it the current law discourages savings and has a marriage penalty. It's a huge source of overpayments and improper payments, creating huge administrative costs. So if your bill were enacted, my understanding is that it would reduce overpayments by 70%.
Really? So what you're suggesting that maybe the CBO would score it as a savings?
I can't speak for the CBO.
Okay, gotcha. Mr. Akabas.
Yes, Senator, thank you for your leadership on this. BPC Action has endorsed the legislation, and particularly at a time when we are trying to address Social Security and encourage people to save more in the private sector system, penalizing them at the same time by taking away their SSI benefits for the fact that they have saved for retirement seems entirely nonsensical.
Yes. Ms. Melito, there's some pretty heavy-duty taxes being tossed around. And I say that because but on the campaign trail, I just see these small businesswomen and these small businessmen who are kind of, can I hire another person? And yet the cost of the taxes and the cost of the benefits to the small business owner makes it difficult for her to do so. There's a woman out of DeRidder, Louisiana. She came to a roundtable I had, and she spoke of, she got 3 or 4 coffee shops, and can she hire another person? At that time, we were talking about the high cost of health care. But this would be a 14% tax on top of that. I don't know what she makes, and I don't know what she'd be subject, but let's imagine, because many would be. Any comments upon how the kind of taxes being discussed, if we just try to do this by raising taxes on both the investment tax as well as the income tax, what that would do for the capital required to expand a business or to improve salary for employees?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for that question. And one thing I was thinking as you were talking about this business owner who you talk with too is I think she would probably really challenge the notion that she doesn't pay her fair share of taxes. I think, she would find that very insulting if somebody.
Okay, but we need to unpack this fair share. You need to pay your fair share. What does that actually mean? Because nobody's really defined what that means. You need to pay your fair share of taxes. Well, what does that mean? So again, everybody really on the left, they love to point out, you have these people that are running these big corporations and they're not paying their fair share. So let's just take, for example, Jeff Bezos. And I know that this is like an unpopular opinion. Like I know that there's a lot of people that really hate Jeff Bezos and they think Jeff Bezos needs to pay his Amazon workers much more and Amazon would not be able to function if it wasn't for their workers, blah, blah, blah. That's true. One way to look at it. But I personally love Jeff Bezos and I always defend him because I love Amazon. I think that Amazon is a great company and a great service and it has positively affected my life in a lot of different ways. I can literally be on this stream on the treadmill that I got from Amazon on Amazon shopping if I need waters or laundry detergent, I can put that in my basket now and it's gonna be on my doorstep between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. tomorrow. That's freaking cool, okay? So that makes my life much easier, not to mention all the jobs that Jeff Bezos has created thanks to Amazon. How many people shop on Amazon? How many people work for Amazon? I feel like Jeff Bezos literally revived the postal service because of Amazon, okay? So, and let's not mention how many people have sold their products on Amazon. They depend on Amazon to sell their products. People have, storefronts and set up businesses on Amazon. People are making millions of dollars selling their products on Amazon or having their products be sold on Amazon. And, if you're a mom and a creator, you can become an Amazon affiliate. I put my link on for my treadmill and the pin message, I get a commission for that. So this is helping people all over the world. Amazon helps people. Jeff Bezos is a billionaire because he has helped people become millionaires. That's how he got to where he is. Now, I don't know him personally. I don't know if he's a good person or an evil person. I don't know. I really don't know. But what I do know is his company has positively influenced my life and made my life better. And a lot of people, like I'm talking about hundreds of millions of people around the world, can say, or billions of people actually can say, that Amazon has made their life better. So why should we tax, the crap out of Jeff Bezos? Like, he provides a service that billions of people benefit from. He provides jobs to millions of people. So why should he be taxed and taxed and taxed and punished, basically, when he's actually done a lot of good for the world? So what is the fair share? And I've talked to my dad about this, about Jeff Bezos, on several occasions. My dad works in finance, is a IRS tax preparer as well. So we've had these conversations about Jeff Bezos, and, there's some years that Amazon does pay a lot of taxes, sometimes billions in taxes. But then some years they have a bad year and they don't pay taxes, or they have
You don't pay your fair share of taxes, because that really, I think, would hit home for a lot of business owners. And I also think that that business owner, and my members too, would most definitely characterize themselves as working persons too, because most business owners do pay payroll taxes on their wages too. So we're getting back to the proposal there. Yes, this would make it very difficult to expand a business, hire another employee, offer benefits for employees too, because it's another layer in the taxes. Our Small Business Economic Trends Survey from May had taxes as the #1 problem that small business owners are dealing right now with, above inflation, above labor costs there. So, and it's layer after layer with taxes too. So this, additional payroll tax there, and that would hit a business owner that maybe has a good year and makes $300,000. So that's going to hit an additional, 12.4%, because again, remember, if you're a pass-through entity, you're paying both sides. There's no other employer that's paying 6.2%. You're paying the full 12.4%. And then, oh, by the way, if they maybe have a good year and they have income, that's going to be taxed now at this new surcharge tax on top, in addition to federal, state income, property taxes, sales, use tax. It goes on and on and on. So very challenging for small business owners. And this, you can't tax your way out of fiscal crisis.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Ms. Altman, I have a
And Jeff Bezos, if you need a sponsor, Mrs. Dave the lawyer would love to be sponsored by Amazon. I think you're great.
bill called the Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act that would do a number of things: lift the cap on contributions for salary above $400,000, and then also bring in self-employment and investment income, including wages that are basically often disguised by high earners as distributed profits, dodging the Medicare and Social Security systems. The Medicare and Social Security actuaries have both taken a look at the bill and said that they make those programs sound and solvent as far as the actuarial eye can see, which is 75 years. What is your comment on those ideas? How complicated would that be to actually implement? And does it meet your notion of a fairness test?
Absolutely. In fact, our organization and many of the organizations in our Social Security Coalition has endorsed that legislation. It really shows that the question before this committee and Congress is one of values, not affordability. No one under $400,000 would pay a penny more under yours, and yet Social Security would be extended for 75 years, and I would argue it doesn't burden those over 400,000. It's I think, well crafted.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a question of will around here, not a question of solving some abstruse technical problem. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be very sophisticated at accounting and tax. You just have to want to fix Medicare and Social Security, and then all the pieces fall into place.
And if I may say, this is a heavily polled area, and every poll shows that from the most conservative Republicans to the most progressive Democrats, they want this solved on the revenue side, not with a single penny of benefit cuts. So your proposal and the...
I mean, I have to agree with her, though. We shouldn't be cutting benefits, because I hate to use this, but it's not fair. It's not fair when, again, you were told when you started working, you have to pay this money into Social Security, but it's okay because you're going to get it back when you go to retire. We're going to take care of you. You're going to be able to live off of the Social Security money that we're taking out of your paycheck. And you won't have to worry about that when you're old and you want to retire or you become disabled and you can't work. That's what Social Security is supposed to be for. And it's not right, in my opinion, to cut anything. But again, I'll go back to, why do people pay taxes on their Social Security money? Why don't we eliminate that? They shouldn't be taxed on Social Security payments. That's, for me, I just think that that's really crazy. But I'm glad that everybody that they polled is in agreement that no, nobody's benefits should be cut back. You paid into that. You've been paying into it your whole life. And then when you go to utilize it, they're going to say, oh, sorry, we had to make some cuts. You know, I guess you can't get groceries this week, or I guess you can't pay your electricity bill. Like, no, that's not right. If we paid into this, and we're supposed to get something in return when we turn 65, they need to figure out a way to give that money to our seniors. But we should never have been in this position to begin with, because they should have done what they told us they were going to do. They should have taken that money, put it to the side, put it in a fund, invest like the Pelosi's like to invest, make some returns on that money, and now you have your little nest egg available to you when you turn 65. That's how Social Security is supposed to be run. That's how it was supposed to be run, but it's not. It is a Ponzi scheme. They take the money in, and instead of putting it where it's supposed to be in the investments, they just give it to the next person turning 65. And then they tell you how they are arresting all these people that have committed fraud and tax fraud and blah, 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 when our government is literally doing all these things that are not legal. Why do we allow this? Why do we as citizens allow this? It's kind of funny saying it out loud. But I'll tell you guys what a solution is and what I think the takeaway should be from listening to these hearings. Do not depend on the government to take care of you. They're not going to take care of you as good as you can take care of yourself. Whatever age you are listening, and especially if you have kids or grandkids, educate yourself, educate them, learn personal finance, learn about investing, learn about qualified funds, learn about 401ks and IRAs, learn about tax law. There's so many amazing resources out there that you can learn from. Learn it for yourself, teach it to your kids, teach it to your grandkids, and have a plan. Do not rely on our government. We don't even know who's going to be in a couple months. We have the midterms coming up. Who knows who's going to be voted into office? All I know is I can take care of myself much better than any government official can take care of me. And I am not waiting around for them to take care of me. I'm going to do what I need to do to protect myself, and I'm going to teach my kids how to do that too. And that's what I want the takeaway for you guys to be. Let's stop complaining that it's not fair. Yeah, we can complain, we can vent, it feels good, right? It feels good to like point out the corruption. It sucks, and we need to talk about it, because it's corrupt and it's going on. But there is something that we can do. We can all take responsibility for ourselves, and we can take care of ourselves. And that's my call to action for you guys tonight.
The Ranking Member Sanders' proposal are exactly what 80% of the American people say they want, or a higher percentage.
There's a concept in economics that's often referred to as the marginal utility of money, or the marginal value of money. And it hypothesizes that if you're struggling to make a living as a nurse or a carpenter on construction, let's say it's your last $1,000. Your last $1,000 is a big deal to you. If that last $1,000 disappears, you damn well notice it at the end of the month, and it affects your choices, it affects your lifestyle. If you are a hedge fund character and you make $200 million in a year, the last $1,000 has essentially zero value to you. You don't even know whether it's there or not. Just your portfolio wobbling around is enough to erase and replace that on a daily basis. And so is it fair to consider the concept of the marginal utility of money in solving a problem like this on the revenue side?
Yeah, yes, and in fact, on the spending side as well, Social Security benefits generally go to low and middle income people who spend them in their local communities immediately. And it's been estimated that for every $1 of Social Security benefits that's paid, it's $2 of economic activity. I think it's 12 million jobs that were created in 2023, that kind of thing. So absolutely, your proposal, and again, Senator Sanders' proposal, will strengthen the economy, whereas any benefit cuts will weaken the economy.
Yeah, that's on the benefit side. I meant on the revenue side.
Yeah, and that's...
On the revenue side, is it not fairer to look at funding Social Security and Medicare out of the wealth?
Yes.
That very wealthy people don't even know exists, that they'll never know if it's not there. It's marginal utility dollar, zero value compared to people who are working on a regular salary and paying taxes like regular human beings.
Absolutely. It's unimaginable. A trillionaire, Elon Musk, he couldn't spend that in 100 lifetimes. And so absolutely on the revenue side, and it's a basic American value that we have progressive taxation for just the reasons you're saying. So I think it's absolutely the right way to think about it.
I think Ben Franklin said that the trick to taxation is to get as many feathers as you can off the goose without the goose honking. This is like huge feather pillows worth of feathers that a goose like Elon Musk would never notice. Never notice. It has literally zero value or utility to him, and yet deployed in this way can enhance the economy and enhance the quality of people's lives. Thank you.
I want to thank you three people for participating in everything, and for all the members who aren't here, but for the benefit of you folks that may get these questions, the record will remain open for 1 week. Senators wishing to submit questions for the record must do so by July 1st at 5 p.m. Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Well, let me thank the panelists as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I know that was a lot. And listen, I know times are tough. Times are tough now. I get it. I totally get it. I've had a rough few years myself, and I have seen how the cost of living has gone up tremendously in the last few years. It's really startling how high the cost of living is. And I was not trying to offend anybody with the statements that I made before, but money is a very touchy subject for people, and apparently exercises too. But anyways, the point is, and I know for some people they really don't want to hear this, but we really do have a choice here in America. We're about to celebrate America's 250th and not anniversary birthday, 250th birthday on July 4th, just a few days away. And personally, I love being an American. I love America. I love what America stands for. And people that come here and really immerse themselves with American culture and understand what America has to offer, especially if they're coming from certain other countries, love America and what we have here. We have so much opportunity, and sometimes, especially if we were born here and we listen to the news too much, it can be really easy to forget how special and how amazing America is. I mean, literally, people from other countries devote their entire lives and life savings to come here to America just for that American dream, and a lot of them make it, and they could never do that in their country of origin. We have so much opportunity here. We really do. And we have a lot of choices. And I think that we forget that sometimes. We always have a choice. It may not be the choice that we want sometimes, but we always have a choice. And the point that I was trying to make earlier is that things are not fair and times are tough. But that doesn't mean that we have to put our heads down and feel depressed or hopeless, because I see a very hopeful future for all of us living in America. We have so much information and knowledge at our fingertips. And if you really want change in your life, if you really want to stop depending on the government, you have the choice to seek out all the knowledge that all these wealthy people, trillionaires and whatnot, have access to also. You have that access as well. You just need to educate yourself, understand how the system works. And you may find that, you know what, the system kind of sucks. It's kind of unfair. And that's just how it is. But if you understand the system, then you will understand how to play in the system. And you can be successful and be whatever you want to be. It is not hopeless, especially here in America. So please don't let the news get you down. Don't let our politicians get you down. Don't stand for the propaganda. You're better than this. You're not a victim. You are a victor. But you have to make that choice. I will see you guys back here this week. I will be streaming every night, leading up to July 4th. I think we'll probably do the Afro Man hearing tomorrow. But thank you guys so much for joining me. It really means a lot that you're spending your night with me. And I have so much fun with everybody in the chat. But I will see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.